Welcome to Miss Smith's Math Tutorials. I'm Miss Smith. In this video, we're going to be talking about solving basic multi-step equations. So to understand solving is all about using inverses. That's going to be the key word here, inverses. And you'll hear me say that word a lot, and inverses just mean opposites. Okay, so we're going to use inverses or opposites to isolate our unknown variable. Now our unknown variable is going to be our letter. For this video, it's just always going to be x, but it doesn't always have to be x, right? It could be y, a, b, whatever letter that the problem has chosen to use. So solving is all about using inverses. So before we dive into solving, let's make sure we understand what our inverses are. And I've labeled them over here. Let's think, what's the opposite of addition? Subtraction. And what's the opposite of subtraction? Addition. So these two are inverses of each other, and we can use one to cancel out the other. The inverse of multiplication, or the opposite of multiplication, would be division, and the opposite of division would be multiplication. So these two can be used to cancel each other out. Okay, so we're going to walk through on this first page 4 examples, and we're going to identify what's going on in the problem and which inverses we need to use. And we're going to use a set of steps to kind of help us figure that out. So looking at this first example, we've got 2x equals 10. The first step that's always a good idea is to draw a line, because this equation symbol is really creating a wall. We have this side, and anytime we cross that wall, we have to use an inverse to do it. So it kind of helps to just visually see that wall in place. Now, the next step that we want is to identify our main character. Now, our main character is always going to be our unknown variable that we're trying to solve for. Or if you want to think of it in an easier term, it's just going to be our letter that we're trying to solve for. So when I look at this, the letter that we're trying to solve for would be x, right? And that's the only letter that I see in this problem. So my main character is x. Now, the next thing we want to identify is our main character's best friend. So who is going to be the best friend right in front of the main character, tied to the main character? So in this case, that would be 2. 2 is right in front of our main character, so 2 is our best friend. So our next step is going to be to cover up our main character and our best friend and ask ourselves, are they alone on that side of the wall? So we're just focusing on the left side of the wall. Are the best friend and the main character completely alone? And what I mean by that is there a number in front or a number behind that we need to take care of? No, on that side of the wall, they're totally alone. Since they're alone, we're ready to go ahead and split up our best friend and our main character. I know, so sad. We just established who they are and now we're splitting them up. But that's how the math problem goes. This is 2 times x. Anytime we see a letter and a number right beside each other like best friends, they're tied through multiplication. So what's the inverse of multiplication? Division. So we can divide. And what we divide by is very important because we don't want to move our main character in this case. We want our main character to stay right where it is, our x, but we want the best friend to move to the other side, to move away from the x, because remember, we're trying to isolate our unknown variable. We're going to divide by the best friend, right? So in this case, it's a positive 2. And when we do that, 2 divided by 2 is a positive 1. And a lot of times in math, we show that, and I show it throughout all of my videos. I show this step by canceling the 2's out. And it's important to understand that the 2's aren't going away. It's just that 2 divided by 2 is a positive 1, And now we just have our x. Now here's the thing about math. If you're going to divide by 2 on this side of the wall, you must divide by 2 on the other side as well. So whatever we do to this side, we got to do the same thing to the other side to keep a balance there. Now we need to bring our equal sign down. And now we want to actually think, what is 10 divided by 2? 5. So 1x equals 5. Now what's important to understand is we don't need to see that 1 there. Okay, I'm just showing it there to show you that it is there. However, it is understood. So typically when we cross out these 2's, we don't need to write that 1 there. It's just understood. So I'm going to rewrite this answer how we would typically see it. Just x equals 5. These 2 say the same thing, but this is going to be the one that you see the most often. All right, let's look at another example. So this one we notice is getting a little longer. We still want to follow the same steps though. First step, draw our wall. Our second step, identify our main character, x, right? X is our main character. Our third step is identify the main character's best friend, 5. It's not 4. 4 is being added over here. It is not directly in front of the main character like the 5 is. 5 is going to be our best friend. Now let's cover them up. So we've got our main character and our best friend covered up. Are they alone on their side of the wall? No. We've got this +4 here this time. So we need to take care of that +4 before we worry about dividing out that 5. So how can I get rid of the 4? Well, right now it's a +4. So what's the opposite of plus? Minus. So we can minus 4 here. And what this does is it's going to cancel out that 4. So let's think through this. A +4 minus 4, well, that cancels to 0, right? And again, we show that with this canceling line. Now, I am going to point out that these canceling lines, even though they look really similar, they're actually saying different things. And I know that's confusing, but I promise that the more you practice with this, it'll make sense. This cancel line is recognizing we're canceling to 1, right? And that's what happens when we divide something by itself. This cancel line is saying that we've got a +4 and we're subtracting 4, and it is fully canceling out, gone, because it just becomes a 0. And I can show you that real quick, that our +4 minus 4 gives us 0. So when we're canceling with dividing, it's canceling to 1. When we're canceling with adding and subtracting, it's canceling gone to 0. So if we're going to subtract 4 on this side, we got to do it on this side too. 34 minus 4, that would give us a +30. We want to bring our equal sign down. Now that 4 minus 4 is gone, okay, so we don't need to worry about it anymore. But we do still have this 5x over here. So now we've got our best friend and our main character, right? And we can cover them up. Are they alone on their side of the wall? Yes, now they're alone. Okay, so now we can do our final division step, because right now these are tied through multiplication. And what's the inverse of multiplication? Division. Now, what do we want to divide by? Is the best friend. And I should have mentioned this over here, but it's a good time to mention it now. I don't want to add an x on here. I see that a lot. That's a very common mistake, is people say, oh, let's divide by 5x. Well, if you did that, the whole thing is going to cancel to 1, right? There won't be an x left on this side. So we don't want to do that. We only want to divide by the best friend. Now our best friend cancels to 1 here, and all we have left on this side is just an x, a 1x. I'm not going to write that 1 because it's understood. We got our equal sign, So if we're going to divide by 5 here, we got to divide by 5 here. Now 30 divided by 5 would give us 6. So for this one, x equals 6. Now, a good habit to get into, and I'm not going to do it in this video only for the sake of time, but a good habit to get into is to always check your answer. And you can do that on any of these problems. You should be able to take what you get for x, so in this case 6, and plug it back in to the original equation. And we should be able to say 5 times 6 plus 4 should equal 34 if we've done all of our math right. And it does. 5 times 6 is 30. 30 plus 4 is 34. So it does check. So even if you write it out or you just mentally do it like I just did, it's always a good idea to check your answer. For this next example, notice that our x is on the right side instead of on the left. That makes no difference at all. It is totally fine for x to be on this side, so don't let that concern you. We still follow our same process. We draw a wall, and then we ask ourselves, who is the main character? Our main character, our letter, is x. So then ask yourself, who is our best friend? So the main character's best friend, who's right in front of it, would be -3. And that sign is really important, right? Because that's tied to the 3. So let's cover them up. Are they alone on their side of the wall? Nope. We've got a +6 over here. We need to take care of that first. How do we undo a +6? Well, the inverse of plus is a minus. So we're going to -6. Now 6 minus 6 is 0. Remember, when we add or subtract and we cancel, it's canceling to 0. It is completely gone. But what we do to one side of the equation, we have to do on the other side of the wall as well. 54 minus 6 is going to give us 48. Bring down our equal sign and bring down our -3 times x. All right, let's cover up our best friend and our main character again. And are they alone on this side of the wall? Yes. We don't have anything in front of the -3. I know you can kind of see that negative, but we don't have anything in front of -3. We don't have anything behind x. So we are actually good to go ahead and split up our best friend and our main character now. And what do we divide by? Remember, the best friend, not the main character. We want the main character to stay. We want the best friend to cancel out to 1. So if we divide by -3 on one side, we have to divide by -3 on the other side as well. So now over here, we have just our 1x, or just x, equals, now 48 divided by -3 is going to give us -16. So our final answer would be -16 equals x. And you may not like the way that looks, to be honest. I like to go ahead and flip this and say x is equal to -16, but it really doesn't matter. Both of these say the exact same thing. So we could absolutely box this and be done with it, or we could rewrite it how we like to see it with the x first. Either way is fine. Now this next example looks a little different. We have got a fraction in this problem, and I know students don't love fractions. I did not love fractions growing up, but fractions are really not scary. They're just division. To solve this problem, we're going to follow the same steps. We're going to draw a wall. We're going to identify our main character. So in this case, our main character is x. And then we want to identify our best friend. The best friend is an understood 1. Remember, I said anytime we have a letter, there is actually something in front of it. It's an understood 1 that we just don't see. So in this case, our main character is x and our best friend is 1. So we want to cover them up. Are they alone on their side of the wall? No, we've got a divided by 5 on this side of the wall. How do we undo division? Multiplication, right? So we can get rid of a divided by 5 by multiplying by 5. And what happens here is pretty cool. If we multiply by the denominator, which in this case is 5, it actually cancels both of those 5s out. If we're going to multiply by 5 on this side, we have to do the same thing over here. We have to multiply by 5 on the other side as well. So at this point, we've got 10 times 5, which is 50. Got our equal sign. And then we've got 1x. Now remember, I said the 1 is understood. We don't need to show the 1. It's the same thing as just having x. So for this problem, our answer is just x equals 50. Let's look at a few more examples. So for this one, notice that we've got 2x plus 5x minus 1 equals negative 1. Our first step is going to be to draw our wall. And then our second step is going to be to identify our main character. But notice that our main character, which should be x, we have 2 of them. So what we would want to do is establish, are those x's on the same side of the wall? They're both on the left side of the wall. So these are what we call like terms that we can go ahead and just combine. We do not need to use our inverses because they are on the same side of the wall. A lot of times we show this just by either circling or underlining them to show that those are like terms. So let's go ahead and combine them. 2x plus 5x would give us 7x. And then we'll just bring down our minus 1 equals negative 1. So now let's identify our main character, which would be x, and our best friend, which would be 7. Let's cover them up. Are they alone on their side of the wall? And they're not. We have this negative 1 here. So what's the inverse of minus 1? It's a plus 1. And negative 1 plus 1 cancels to 0. But whatever we do to one side of the wall, we have to do to the other side. So we also want to add 1 to the other side as well. Now something really interesting happens here. Negative 1 plus 1 also cancels. It cancels to 0. But here's the thing, there's nothing else on this side of the wall, and that's okay. We're just going to put exactly what's there, which is 0. So let's bring down our 7x. So now let's cover up our main character and our best friend. They are now alone on their side of the wall. So we're good to go ahead and divide and separate them. So we've got a 7 times x. We're going to divide by our best friend of 7. Those cancel to 1. So we just have an x left on this side. And if we're going to divide by 7 on this side, we need to do the same thing on the other side. So we're going to divide by 7 over here as well. 0 divided by 7 is just 0. And we can absolutely have 0 as an answer. So for this one, x equals 0. Now, our next two equations, I've purposely put them both in the middle here because these are very commonly confused, and I want to really show that these are very different situations. We'll notice that this one reads 3 times x divided by 4 plus 7 equals 25. This one reads 3x plus 7 divided by the whole thing divided by 4 equals 25. So for this first one, our first step is going to be draw a wall. And then our second step is going to be identify our main character. So our main character is going to be x, and our best friend is going to be 3. So I'm going to cover up our best friend and our main character. Are they alone on this side of the wall? We've got 2 other things going on. We've got a divided by 4, and we have a plus 7. Order does matter here. How do we undo a plus 7? We subtract 7. And 7 minus 7 cancels to 0. And if we're going to subtract 7 on this side, we need to do the same thing over here. And 25 minus 7, 18. And now we'll bring down our 3x divided by 4. And bring down our equals. We've got our main character and our best friend, and if we were to cover them up, they're not alone, right? We've got this divided by 4 that we need to undo. So to undo a divided by 4, we are going to times by 4. And remember we said that when we do this, when we times by the denominator, it cancels out the denominator. And what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So we also need to multiply by 4 on the other side as well. 18 times 4 is a 72. Bring down our equals. And now we just have 3x. So if we cover up our main character and our best friend now, they are finally totally alone. So we can go ahead and divide to split them up. We're going to divide by our best friend, divide by the best friend, and we get x equals, now 72 divided by 3 is 24. So x equals 24. Moving on to this example, our first step is always going to be let's draw a wall. Reading through this is 3 times x plus 7 divided by 4. How do we undo dividing by 4? Well, we just need to multiply by 4. And when we multiply by the denominator, it cancels out. If we're going to times by 4 on this side, we need to times by 4 on the other side as well. 25 times 4 is 100. Bring down our equals sign, and bring down, now we just have the numerator, 3x plus 7. So now we want to identify who's our main character, x, right? Who's our best friend, 3. So we cover them up. Are they alone? Nope, they've got that plus 7. So we need to subtract 7 from both sides. Here it cancels. Now 100 minus 7 is 93. Bring down our equals sign and bring down our 3x. So when we cover up our main character and our best friend, finally they're alone on this side of the equation. So we can now split them up by dividing out the best friend. So now these two 3's cancel to a 1, leaving us with just an x. And then we've got our equals, and a 93 divided by 3 gives us 31. For our last example, let's go ahead and first step, draw our wall. And next step, we want to identify our main character. Now something interesting happens here. Notice that we have an X on this side of the wall and on this side of the wall, right? So over here, they were on the same side of the wall, but now they're on different sides, and that makes a big difference. We can't just combine these together. We have to use our inverse operations to do it because they're on different sides of the wall. So I like to always move my smaller x value to the larger x value. let's look at our two x values. We've got a negative 2x and a positive 4x. So which one is smaller? Negative 2x. That's our smaller x value. We want to move this one to the larger, and we're going to do that using our inverse operation. Right now it's being subtracted. This is minus 2x. We want to do the opposite. We want to add 2x. And when I do that, negative 2x plus 2x cancels to 0. But if we're going to add 2x to this side, we also need to add it to this side as well. So 4x plus 2x gives me 6x. Now we want to bring down our plus 2, bring down our equals. Those 2x's are gone, and we just have a 10. So now we got our x's together, and now this looks just like one of the first problems that we did. We want to identify our main character, x, identify our best friend, 6, cover them up. Are they alone? Nope. We've got a plus 2, so we need to undo that plus 2. The way we can undo addition is subtraction, subtracting 2. 2 minus 2 cancels. What we do to one side, we have to do to the other. 10 minus 2 gives us an 8. Bring down our equals, bring down our 6x. Cover our best friend and our main character up. Are they alone now on their side of the wall? Yes. So now that they're finally alone, we can undo this multiplication, divide out the best friend. If we're going to divide by 6 on this side, we've got to do it on this side as well. We've got x equals 8 divided by 6. Now you may be thinking, I don't think we get a whole number there. And you're definitely right. If I put in my calculator 8 divided by 6, I don't get a whole number. I get a decimal. And that's totally fine. We can have fraction answers. We can have decimal answers. No big deal. We do want to leave our answer, though, in the most reduced form. If we were going to leave our answer as a decimal, we could leave this as 1.3. We would actually call this 1.3 repeating. X equals 1.3 repeating. Or if we wanted a fraction form, we need to reduce this 8 over 6. And I'm going to show you a really cool calculator trick that will reduce any fraction for you. We put in 8 divided by 6 and we got this long decimal. If I want my calculator to give me the reduced fraction, all you have to hit is math, enter, enter. And it will reduce any fraction for you. So it reduced 8 over 6 to 4 over 3. So we could say x is 1.3 repeating, or x is 4/3. Either of these answers are fine. Okay, here's 3 examples for you guys to try. I will post the answers in the video description below. This has been Miss Math Tutorials.